The biggest news in MMA right now, the top story. Jon Jones returns to the testing pool. Now, that was 13 days after he was retired. Now, my audience, you guys, are very unique within this space, that you are armed with the information that retire in our sport is not a word like it is in other industries. Retire in our sport is a legal term that directly associates with your participation in the USADA testing pool. Now, I'm well aware that USADA isn't still here, but we will use that term at times just to demonstrate the pool and what goes into it. So Jon Jones returns, and all I have is Jon's words. And I thought they made a level of sense. I thought in a situation like this, Jon handled it as best you could, which was to get in and get out. Don't be too wordy and don't try to explain this. I mean, this is a massive dog chasing its tail situation of rinse and repeat. And what happens when we get there and what are we doing and what made this game start in the first place? Jon says, and I quote, "I re-entered the pool so that everybody could keep their options open." And I didn't know what that meant. I read that 2 or 3 times. And the conclusion that I've come to is when he says everybody can keep their options open. Look, if Jon is not in the testing pool, he is not eligible for a fight. If he sees an opportunity that he really wants, he would not be eligible to jump on that. Now, in the USADA day, and this was a greatly debated point. It's a point that I personally don't think would have held up. But USADA's ruling of their own bylaw is that if somebody is to remove themselves from the pool and re-enter the pool, if that somebody had a history anywhere of a failed drug test, they would have to be in the pool for 6 months. Which I believe they officially labeled as 180 days. Now, that never actually got tested, but it almost got tested. When USADA was asked to no longer participate in the UFC, and the UFC came forward with the new company, USADA, made a very nasty comment. And this is all just pre-UFC 300, which did not have an announced main event, and it was largely rumored and speculated would be the return of Conor McGregor. And USADA said, hey, listen, you're getting rid of us. And one of the reasons you're getting rid of us is we won't allow McGregor to step in and fight on set short notice. He must be in there for 180 days. Now, this never actually got ruled, but the UFC spoke publicly back to USADA. And they said, now, whether we agree with you or we don't agree with you, though we very clearly don't have to. This is Jeff Nowitzki's department. He says, we will honor, in this case, your interpretation, which is 180 days. So we'll reinsert Conor into the testing pool. We'll give him 6 months, which would disqualify his participation in UFC 300. Okay. Did you stay with me on all of that? Because it's important that you do. If you're wondering why would Jones re-enter, and you're interpreting that as, okay, Jon's back, he's no longer retired. You're close. Like, definitely perception-wise, what you're saying is close. But there are rules. There are rules that he would have to follow. So if he came out of that testing pool, even if for 13 days, it is relevant, should he, to use his own word, have options open, that he get back in the pool. And it wouldn't matter if it was 13 days, 13 minutes, or 13 hours. Under USADA's rule, which the UFC, this one time that I'm giving you an example of McGregor in 300, said, we don't necessarily agree with, but we will recognize. Now, the UFC was very clear that that was for that situation. But what does the new testing agency call for? Now, all of these things can be found out. They take a level of research. I'm openly sharing with you, I did not do that level of research. I used to know these rules inside and out, but I'm disclosing for you the ones that I took the time to learn were specifically USADA, which largely there's overlap in their hand-in-hand, largely. But sometimes you get confronted with a situation like this. Listen, what could you do with Jon? Whenever I'm asked the question by you guys, what do you think? What do you predict? What's going to happen now? My mind instantly asks a different question. No matter what you ask me, my mind instantly goes to not do I think, not does the fan in me, what does Chael, how would Chael match them up? No matter what you ask, my mind instantly goes to what do I think Dana's going to think? If you ask me how something's going to be handled, it's not a matter of me speaking. My mind will instantly hear and change your question to what do I think Dana is going to feel and how's he going to react? Look, I'll tell you something that we cannot have and we won't have. And I tell you this with a great degree of confidence. We cannot have and we won't have Jon Jones the contender. There is, for responsibility reasons, if nothing else, you must put Jones with the top guy. You must put Jones with the number one ranked guy. You must put Jones with a champion. You go start putting Jon Jones with number 7, number 8, number 9, a contender. He's one of the guys. He's one of the guys and he's kind of feeling out the field. Jon Jones will send the best guy in the world to the emergency room. Jon Jones will send the baddest guy that you can identify to the ER. So you can't just put him in there. Jon Jones, the contender. And then what are you fighting for? The UFC has made a couple of brand promises, and they date back to 2005. But they have held firm to those promises. One of which is the best will fight the best. The UFC is not a place to get experience. The UFC is not a place to finish out your career, try to get some exposure, or try to make some money, at least not in and of itself. The UFC is exclusively for champions and future champions. Once you are identified that your potential no longer allows a belief that you could be a future champion, you're no longer with the UFC. So if you have someone like Jon, and they've offered him a world title fight, which they have. They've offered him Aspinall, which they have. If you have that kind of a situation, and he goes and does anything less, what would we call it? Like if Jon's next fight is not for the belt, would we have to default and say, but it's a number one contenders match? But a number one contender largely just means that the organization is offering you an opportunity to fight for the world title. It's not an actual ranking. Number one contender and ranking are totally different things. So if Jon was to have a fight, absolutely anybody you can find on the board, excluding the champion, if he was to have a fight, wouldn't we all be saying, this is the number one contenders match? So if Jon goes out and he has success, we would be offering him the very fight that we just offered him. And he said no to. See where this becomes a problem? So what do you do with Jon Jones? Is there room in the UFC for Jon Jones, the contender?